Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Alhamdulillah, UK National Waqf-e-Nau Ijtima has taken place today, and I hope that it will have proven beneficial to you all. According to the report of the Central Waqf-e-Nau Department, there are around 3,200 male Waqf-e-Nau here in the United Kingdom. And to have so many members of the Waqf-e-Nau scheme is a great blessing of Allah upon our Jamaat. Indeed, even if there is no further increase in the number of Waqf-e-Nau, we already have more than enough to bring about a true spiritual revolution within our Jamaat. However, to achieve this, it requires for all of you to fulfill your pledge of devoting your life for the cause of your faith and to become shining stars of Ahmadiyyat. Similarly, if all the current Waqf-e-Nau reach their potential, it will lead to a huge increase in our Tabligh efforts, inshallah. Anyway, it does not mean that we have now reached an end. Rather, with each day that passes, the Jamaat continues to succeed and grow due to the blessings of Allah the Almighty. Hence, each year, many more children are being born into this blessed scheme, both here in the UK and across the world. Amongst the total number of Waqf-e-Nau boys in the UK, quite a good number has now reached the age of 15 and above. Thus, the majority of you have reached an age where a person's mind becomes quite mature and he becomes more independent. Consequently, most of you should understand your responsibilities and comprehend the pledge that your parents made on your behalf before you were born. Indeed, after renewing your pledge freely and independently, you must be mentally prepared for the sacrifices required and be ready to live your lives in full accordance with Islamic teachings. Every member of Waqf-e-Nau should constantly have a fear of Allah in his heart, knowing that He is watching everything that we do. As I said, the number of Waqf-e-Nau at this time is more than enough to bring about a spiritual and moral revolution within the Jamaat. For such a revolution to occur, it is not necessary that you all enter Jamia Ahmadiyya and train as missionaries. Certainly, the demand for missionaries is ever increasing, and so we do want as many boys to enter Jamia as possible. However, at the same time, it is also essential that the Waqf-e-Nau in other fields understand their duties to the Jamaat and ensure that they are constantly increasing their religious knowledge alongside their secular education. Thus, all of you, whether you plan to enter Jamia or not, must read the Holy Quran daily and try to read its commentaries and as well as studying the ahadith and the books of the Prophet Messiah alayhi salam. Only then will you be in a position to guide and morally reform others. Only then will you be real asset in our tabligh and tarbiyat efforts. Only then will you be ready to play your role in bringing forth a true spiritual revolution in the world. The knowledge you will gain from such study will provide you with the intellectual power and capabilities to overcome the arguments of those who oppose our religion. Furthermore, you must constantly analyze yourselves and try to improve upon any personal weaknesses that exist. For example, some Waqf-e-Nau worry that if they give too much time to the Jamaat or become Waqf-e-Zindagi, that is, full-time life devotee, they will be deprived in material terms. They wonder how they will earn money and fulfill their personal and family needs. It is wrong for a Waqf-e-Nau to think in this way, and it is not according to the spirit of the blessed scheme of which you are a part. Rather, as member of Waqf-e-Nau, you should realize that worldly and material pursuits are not your objective. Rather, your goals are spiritual and your lives are to be spent in the service of the Jamaat. Thus, from a young age, you must inculcate a spirit of true sacrifice within yourselves. If you are firmly determined and resolute in your ambition to fulfill your pledge of prioritizing your faith over all worldly matters, such financial concerns will never enter your minds. And you will not be influenced by worldly attractions or material pursuits. In terms of your responsibilities, first and foremost, every Waqf-e-Nau should have the highest standards of worship and should set a positive example for others to follow in this regard. No member of Waqf-e-Nau should miss any of the 5 daily prayers, and they should try to offer congregational prayers as much as possible. If you live at a far distance from the nearest mosque or Salat center, try to arrange congregational prayers with other Ahmadi boys who live nearby. Furthermore, in order to fulfill your pledge, you must have knowledge of your faith. It is impossible to serve your religion if you do not know what it is and what it requires. As I said earlier, you should constantly try to increase your knowledge, your religious knowledge, by reading the Holy Quran, as well as studying the Hadith, the books of Prophet Muhammad and other Jamaat literature, and also attach yourself with MTA. At least listen to my sermons every week. In all respect, people should be able to distinguish between you and others. People should be able to identify you as members of Waqf-e-Nau simply by observing your high moral standards. They should view you as an example for others to learn from. For example, when you are young, it is easy to become angry over small things. But as a Waqf-e-Nau, you should control your temper and show patience at all times. Furthermore, when you interact with other people, you should speak kindly, and your conduct and manners should be exemplary. Seek ways to help and assist others and try to solve their problems. Consider the pain of other people as though it is your own and give comfort to them. At all times, it should be clear to other Ahmadis and non-Ahmadis that you have been brought up in a good way and that you follow Islam's teachings in all aspects of your lives. It is very easy to display good behavior in front of a few people occasionally, or to appear open-hearted over those matters where you do not have a personal interest. However, the real test lies when you yourself have a personal interest or face some difficulties. It is at such times that the true character and moral fiber of a person is shown. And so, as members of Waqf-e-Nau, you should remain truthful and good-mannered at all times and in all circumstances. Similarly, it is easy to instruct others to be kind or to be humble and selfless. But before instructing others, you should first reform and improve your own habits. Good company is also very important. And so, you should choose your friends wisely. Seek good and moral friends. And stay away from those who are involved in bad behavior. You should avoid quarrels and unnecessary disputes. You should also avoid inappropriate friendship or relationship with girls. From a young age, you should be regular in attending Jamaat events and take an active part in them and offer as much of your time as possible to serve the Jamaat. In terms of the belief, from a young age, Waqf-e-Nau should have the habit of spreading the message of Islam. In today's world, many people hold a negative view of Islam. And so it is a great challenge for all of you to counter the false impression that has developed. It is your duty, even more than others, to show the world that Islam is a religion of peace, love, and compassion. Thus, at weekends or during holidays, you should do tabligh and play your role in defending Islam from the false allegations that are leveled against it. Both the Jamaat and Majlis Khudam al-Ahmadiyya host tabligh functions and events. And so you should offer your services and try to help as much as possible. Where you will be gaining the pleasure of Allah by extending the message of Islam to others. You will also be increasing your own knowledge, experience, and confidence. These skills will, inshallah, benefit you throughout your life. Moreover, humility and forbearance are very important characteristics and qualities that you should develop. In fact, humility should be the hallmark of all members of Waqf-e-Nau. On the other hand, you should have a hatred for any form of arrogance and pride, and you should do a personal jihad against it. Further, you should try to offer the Friday prayers each week and make sure that you listen to my Friday sermons. At all times, you should try to increase your relationship with Khilafat more than others. Members of Waqf-e-Nau should seek the nearness and guidance of Khilafat at all times. You should be examples of obedience and should strive to understand and fulfill whatever instructions the Khalifa Waqf gives to the members of the Jamaat. In terms of your secular education, those Waqf-e-Nau who are in secondary school, particularly those aged 14 or 15, should try to develop a keen interest in science subjects and strive to excel because, apart from missionaries, we also have a great need for doctors. We also require teachers both in science and in other academic fields. And so Waqf-e-Nau should also take up teaching. Moving on, I wish to remind you of the great importance of reading the books of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and understanding his expectations of the Jamaat. A Waqf-e-Nau as a Waqf-e-Nau, you must pay attention and reflect on the words of the Prophet ﷺ at all times and have firm faith in whatever he has taught. In this regard, the Prophet ﷺ himself said that if his followers did not act upon his instructions, it meant they were weak in faith. Certainly, we cannot expect to reform the world and guide it towards salvation if the members of Waqf-e-Nau, who are the future ambassadors of our Jamaat, are themselves weak in their faith. The Prophet ﷺ also expressed his ardent desire that the members of his Jamaat be those who furthered the cause of Tawheed, the oneness of Allah, with great passion and zeal. Thus, at every opportunity, the Waqf-e-Nau should be at the forefront of doing tabligh and seeking to bring people towards the one God. Furthermore, the Prophet ﷺ repeatedly advised about the importance of Zikr Ilahi, the remembrance of Allah. And so, you should try to develop the habit of praying and remembering Allah throughout the day and not just during the 5 daily prayers. Also, when it comes to morality and spirituality, always seek to progress and advance. Never think that you have achieved all that is required and have now fulfilled your objectives. Indeed, the Prophet ﷺ said that the true believer should never become satisfied but should always seek to increase his relationship with Allah the Almighty and to increase in righteousness. If you have this spirit, then inshallah you will be successful, because Allah the Almighty helps those who are ever restless in their efforts to gain His nearness. The Prophet ﷺ also instructed that we should sincerely pray that Allah protects us from all immoral activities and that we stay pure and good and God-fearing at all times. Certainly, in today's society, where there are many dangers and pitfalls that exist, these prayers are even more important as a means of protecting you from the vices and temptations all around. On another occasion, the Prophet ﷺ said that our Jamaat will only be distinguished from other Muslims if we sincerely follow the true teachings of Islam and view the Holy Quran as our guiding light at all times. Certainly, members of the Waqf-e-Nau scheme should pay particular attention to this point. In every matter and in every action, you should be guided by what Islam teaches and requires from you. Every moment of your lives should be governed by the teachings of the Holy Quran and the blessed practice of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. If your conduct is according to Islam, then you will not only benefit yourselves, but you will also be means of pride for the Jamaat and become an example to others as well. If you are moral and honest, other people will naturally be drawn towards you, and you will be a means of inspiration to them. Alhamdulillah, we have many converts in our Jamaat, and when asked what initially attracted them to Ahmadiyyat, many responded by saying that it was the good conduct and high morals of their Ahmadi friends which drew them towards Islam. Thus, if you are sincere Ahmadi Muslims, and if your behavior is according to the teachings of Islam, you will be constantly taking part in a silent form of tabligh for which you will be rewarded by Allah the Almighty. Unquestionably, every Ahmadi should have high standards and partake in this silent tabligh. But it is also true that our Waqfin and all should be the standard bearers in this regard. Always remember that we are the fortunate ones because Allah the Almighty sent the Prophet Muhammad to guide us, and we were able to accept his claim. However, as I said earlier, it is not just enough to accept him. Rather, we must make every effort to reform ourselves and to fulfill the conditions of our Bai'at and to practice what we preach. In this regard, the Prophet ﷺ said, if a person does Bai'at, it is not enough for him to merely accept Ahmadiyyat as the truth. A verbal declaration on its own is not enough to gain Allah's blessings or to please Him until it is accompanied by sincerity and pious conduct. He further says, thus, once you enter the Jamaat, strive to be righteous and fear Allah at all times. Abstain from all forms of wrongdoing and vice. Be kind in your speech and make istighfar your constant companion, and pray with great sincerity during namaz. At the end, I pray that may Allah grant you all the ability to fulfill that sacred pledge and bond that was first made by your parents prior to your birth and which you have since renewed. And the younger children, Waqfin and all, will inshallah will renew. May Allah all of you fulfill your duties. May all of you fulfill your duties and be amongst those who bring about a true and everlasting spiritual revolution in the world. Ameen. Now join me in silent prayer. Ameen. बस अस्सलाम वालेकुम रहमतुल्लाह।